Hello, it's Kay Lowry. I love meeting you here when we're talking about theory lessons and songwriting. Today we're going to be doing Path to Songwriting. You're going to need your Primo Theory book, and we are zooming along. Today we're talking about spelling half steps and whole steps in different ways. Now, when I was little, I had a lot of cousins in my family. And we all had nicknames for each other. I can't remember all the nicknames in our family, but I knew that you might call someone by their real name, but the other cousin in the family might call the same person by a nickname. You know, when we're naming sharps and flats, it can be like that because we can have different names for the same note. Today, in addition to your book, you might want to have some little objects. I have little squares. You can have erasers, and those will help you on your piano. Another thing you might have at the end is, of course, your staff paper, because you're going to want to draw some sharps and flats and make some music with them. I want to turn my camera around to look at my piano, and let's take a look at how some of this might work if we have different kinds of notes. So let's start with C. That's a middle C. Now the note that is the black note right up higher than that is a C sharp. But it can also be called a D flat. So I can speak and say C to C sharp, but I could also say C to D flat. When I use two different letter names, that's called a diatonic half-step. Diatonic starts with the letter D, and so does the word different. So when I think of different letter names, I think of the word diatonic. It also works that way with flats. So say we have an A, and we have the note below it. We could call that A and A flat. We could also call it A and G sharp. That would be diatonic, and that would be a different set of letter names. You can do the same thing with whole steps. Say you have a C sharp and a D sharp. Those are two different letter names. But you could call it a C sharp and an E flat. I wouldn't necessarily do that because it's a little confusing. So now that you've taken a look at my piano, I will go back to the regular camera, and then I want to show you a little bit what it looks like when we're doing our theory lesson. So I'll share my screen. And we take a look at page number 20. And at the top, it talks about the same thing that we just saw on my piano, C and C sharp or D flat. And so there are two ways to spell this note. Notice that there are these pairs of white keys, and they require no sharp or flat. You have to be careful with these guys, B, C, E, and F. Always be on your toes when you're using them. Now let's take a look at section 6. Name the key a half step up from each labeled key. Write the letter name on the key. Use only spellings with flats. So you'll have to think a little bit about this. We can't call this C sharp. We're going to have to call it D flat, and so on. Please stop the video and complete section 6. Take a look at section 7. We'll do the same thing except in reverse. Name the key a half step down. Write the letter name using only spellings with sharps. Stop the video and complete section 7. Let's take a look again at the next page, which is page 22. So actually page 21, sorry about that. It's called a diatonic half step. I've already mentioned that earlier. Diatonic starts with the word D, and so does the word different. I recommend writing the word different underneath here just to give you a little prompt as to how you're going to use this half step. So C and C sharp are the same letter, same space. That's not a different letter, so it's not diatonic. A diatonic half step is C and D flat. Now they are the same notes, just like my cousins were the same people, but we're just calling them by a different name. Take a look at section 7. Complete the statements, but spell all the half steps as diatonic half steps. Pause the video, complete section 8. Section 9 asks us to draw a half note, one diatonic half step up from each given note. Name the notes. Use flat signs only if needed. Pause the video, complete section 9. Now let's take a look at page 22. We are going to spell some whole steps. Be sure to use neighboring letter names. So here is the best spelling, D flat and E flat. We want to avoid spelling a step using the same letter. It gets very confusing when you're reading music like that. And we want to avoid using letters that are a skip apart. So a diatonic whole step is a whole step that uses neighboring letter names. They're different letter names, but they're next door neighbors. Take a look at section 10 and circle the spelling that best represents one diatonic whole step. Pause the video and complete section 10. Section 11, name the key, a diatonic whole step up from each label key, and write the letter name on the keys. You'll notice section 12 does the same thing in reverse, writing the key or naming the key that is one diatonic whole step down and writing the letter name on that key. Pause the video and complete sections 11 and 12. And now we get into some more fun. Instead of just labeling keys on a keyboard, we're going to start writing music on staff. So here in section 13 and section 14, we're going to follow these directions. Draw a half note, one diatonic whole step up from each given note, and name the notes underneath. Notice diatonic, different, and they are next door neighboring notes. In section 14, we're just drawing dotted half notes and going down one diatonic whole step and naming the notes. Pause the video, complete these sections. Section 15, draw an eighth note, one diatonic step, whole step up from each given note. Name the notes. Now what's tricky about these eighth notes, remember your stem direction, but also remember that the flags always go in. Whether it's a stem going down, they're tucked into the right, or a stem that goes up, they're tucked to the right. So you don't have to make them fancy and all shaded and everything. Just make this shape and make sure that the flag points to the right, and then your eighth note will be correct. Pause the video, finish section 15. Lastly, we have section 16, and we're going to look at this. The distance between each pair of notes is a whole step or a half step. You're going to label it W for whole or H for half step. I like to look on a piano. That's why they have this little picture of a piano here. If you have your piano handy, you'll want to actually touch these keys because it gives you a good idea of what the correct answer is. pause the video, and finish section 16. Now, I'm wondering how you can use the idea of diatonic half steps and diatonic whole steps in your music. You will probably want to get some staff paper out and write some of your ideas. Maybe you want to just play some scales. Those are full of half steps and whole steps. You might want to be playing a scale. I'll show you my piano. I'll play a G scale. And on my left hand, I just want to play a whole step, a whole note G. I could go backwards and play around with some different combinations of whole steps. And notice that my half steps occur between 7 and 8 and 3 and 4. So you can write a piece in the key of G. And even with just one long note in the left hand, you have a really nice piece. Hope that gave you an idea that maybe would turn into a really cool song that you would write down. Until next time, Kay Lowry, and I hope you write a beautiful song today.